Great morning, world. Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon.
Great morning, world. This is getting more and more fun because it's becoming a regular thing and part of my morning structure. It's always been the Rise Up with Dragon podcast and show has always been a part of my morning structure, but now my family is being incorporated into it. Chicken is now unconsciously coming and sitting in on these sessions.
Being dragged in.
She says she's being dragged in, but the cats are involved, and it's part of our morning schedule. And it's been interesting, with the advent of Clubhouse, and big shout out to the folks joining the Clubhouse room. You can find me at Clubhouse at Make Sense, or just look up things like Dragon or JC Dornick. But we've got people listening in the Clubhouse version because one of the challenges with Clubhouse is that it doesn't have a feature yet for recording. But it's fun because, we're creating this morning gathering to rise up together. And I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel a little bit selfish, like it's more about me, because I really get a lot out of that. And that's one of the things that I want to make unique about this. I've been spending a lot of time in a lot of Clubhouse rooms, specifically oriented around, growth mindset and also podcast. And there's this discussion going on about having just a raw live podcast that you stream to all channels and also rock it live in a Clubhouse room at the same time. And for me, I like the fact that it's potentially not the right thing to do and uncomfortable, because that's one of the things that I want to bring in my podcast and in my show, because I just want people to know that they're just going to get the opportunity to learn and unlock themselves for the win in the day, get yourself straight, get your head screwed on straight. But at the same time, I love the idea of people experiencing somebody in the throes of figuring things out and not being perfect. One of the things I'd like to openly apologize to everyone that finds this and says, hey, I never knew about this. I'm not really too up on the whole algorithm hashtag thing. Chicken's been helping me and we've hired somebody, but I realized it was never my intention to put it out there and have people, say, hey, great show. It was really just me. And this is what's interesting, I think, of the show. It was really just me practicing sharing this stuff that I encourage everybody to do, my journal entries and the writing of my book. And what I get out of that is I unpack it myself by writing it, and I explain it to myself. And then by regurgitating these things to you, my rise ups, what happens is I pay it forward to you, and that really helps me keep it. But also in the same, it gives me the ability to kind of like further explain it to myself, and that helps me understand this stuff, hence make sense of them. And I drink coffee during this. I slurped my coffee, yes, sweetie. So today, Chicken and I we get a little bit frustrated. But we understand. We get a little frustrated where, some of the podcasts that we listen to, because we're big podcasters, have a tendency of like all of a sudden taking like a 30-minute or 1 hour session and then having half of that swallowed up by advertisements and stuff like that. And I totally get it. And I'm right now in a position where I'm not doing that. And I'm saying that that's the way I want to do it. But if I do all of a sudden start coming at you strong with advertisements and stuff, I hope you'll forgive me for that. And no, I'll tell you right now, because I might not admit it, that I'm doing it all for the money at that point, right? So just
I love your honesty and transparency.
I'm just not going to lie. I mean, like if I start making money off of this, I hope you'll forgive me for wanting to make more money. But we thought it would be fun to make the only advertisements are, that we're going to, and sponsors of the show are going to be the people that matter most, our family. Oh, Chicken just did something just terrible. It's a good thing you're not on camera, sweetie. But our family and friends. So today's show is sponsored by Karma Mind, which is probably one of the best, if not ever, meditation podcasts. You can find that on iTunes. Karma Mind by Chicken herself. Today's episode is also sponsored by Sandra Filippucci and the Cyber Nun Art Show, I think we'll call it. That's my stepmom. And if you ever go on Instagram, look up Cyber Mom, or no, I'm sorry, Cyber Nun.
That's amazing. Cyber
Nun. She's just doing unbelievable stuff, and we've got some of her most valuable stuff up on our walls. But Cyber Nuns, and of course, Dornick Driven, vinyl wrapping and car restoration. Dornick Driven, make driving fun. How was that? So in any case, today I just want to give some props to a man that would have been 289 years old today. And I'm just thinking about him being 289 years old. He had wooden teeth, and he probably had some like lead bullets shot through his leg and stuff like that, and like some sort of like saber at the end of a musket stuck into his abdomen back then. But today is George Washington's birthday, and he would have been 289 years old, and that's why I guess we call this President's Day. Chicken fact coming in.
No. So February 22nd is actually his birthday, but we celebrate his birthday on the second Monday.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna take that back for all of you fact checkers there, and I just want you to know that on the Rise Up with Dragon show, our facts come from Chicken, and that means that it's just a Google thing.
I'm sorry.
But anyway, she said that his birthday is actually on the 22nd, so I will say in 2021 I'm the first person to wish George Washington a birthday, because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But anyway, it is President's Day, and big props to all of those people, or almost all of them. So I put up a quote today, and I just want to read that. I like to have my quote of the day. Helps us, say, that's cool, and gain from it and move forward on that. So I just wrote this, and I kind of like reworked some things that were in my mind, but it says, no matter what anyone thinks, says, or does, my task is to first understand. And I love that, because I'm always looking to seek to understand things and happenings and people rather than be understood. And that's a cool thing to take with you today, because something's going to happen. Someone's going to say something. I'm going to be talking to my coach community today about, what is a good use of their time, and what is it that identifying what it is that you do, because sometimes things that are out of your control and things that have nothing to do with you, things that are none of your business, because you're in the business of doing something else, will come in and you'll get tied up. It's interesting in business how you'll get tied up and work the hardest on things that don't have anything to do with where you want to go. So I'm always looking to improve. That's how I define health, is how I react to adversity. If you are healthy physically, mentally, and financially, when the shit hits the fan, then you're going to have an easier time than most. And I just love, Valentine's Day just passed. I'm going to be posting these live. I'm going to be posting this is live right now, and everybody knows yesterday was Valentine's Day, but podcast will get this tomorrow on Tuesday. But it just had such a beautiful Valentine's. We spent it at the Carlisle Hotel in the city. Big props to the Carlisle. They didn't sponsor this show. But, one of the finest historical hotels, we actually looked at each other and said, this might be one of the nicest places we've ever stayed. We had a beautiful suite there. Pandemic was obvious. There's very, very little people out there. People in New York City are eating in little igloos. Like, it's so strange, because there's these little igloos outside of the restaurants there that look like they're made for like tiny children. And you so badly want to be in there. So it's cold outside, and you also want to be able to sit and eat. But at the same time, not something that looks very comfortable, like you can't stand in it, and looks like you might not be able to breathe in them and stuff. But awesome, awesome. I'm just noticing some of the poise. Oh, that's great. I love Katia McGuire, who's a rock star. We'll have to have her on the show one day, or have it sponsored by her. She says her boys are listening to me in the morning. What's up, Katia McGuire boys? I'm always following you guys too. A great morning to everybody else. So today is about mindfulness. You're going to love this topic. Oh, one more thing on Valentine's Day. Chicken and I, when we were in the restaurant last night, we went to the restaurant we had our first date on, and this is actually really, really nice, and it'll lend well into today's Rise Up. But I noticed that when I'm with her and I'm looking at her, because I authentically love her, and she's my priority, just as I would with my kids when I'm watching hockey or watching Little Ducky. By the way, we just got great news, crossing our fingers, knock on wood, news about our Little Ducky and the advancement of her coming here. So we woke up to that this morning. It was funny. Chicken she was woken up at about 5 a.m., which is way early for Chicken, to find out great news. And I heard her going, "What's happening? Why are you doing this?" And then she started to be elated because we got some great news. But what I was noticing is that, when I'm with her, sometimes her and I were a little extravagant, in not being rude, but, we do silly things. We act like children when we're together. That's one of the great side effects of love. But sometimes we have to recognize that other people are around us. And I'm always telling her, I'm like, there's nobody else here, because when I'm with her, when you get your priorities straight, the rest of the world, the rest of the matrix, the simulation just peels away. I don't know if you can resonate with that. But when you are focused on the things that matter most, you kind of don't notice any other thing. So if you're in an environment and you're noticing everything else that's going on, what I would say is maybe you're not 100% focused. Maybe you don't have your priorities straight. So I just feel like whenever I'm with Chicken, and it's dangerous because I'm kind of with her now, and I don't want to stop thinking about you guys. But the rest of the world falls away. And whenever somebody gives us shit or something from the outside in, I always say, "Sweetie, that person doesn't exist. That person's a cartoon. They're a glitch in the matrix. They actually don't even exist." So to those people, I apologize, but that's just a wonderful way of living, is when you're just so focused on the things that you want matter most, and the things that you want, and the people that matter most, that actually truly matter. Everything else just doesn't mean anything. It's none of your business. So mindfulness, obviously a play on mindfulness. So let's get into this. So nothing can survive without food. The basic essential needs of a human being are warmth, water, and food. Think about it. I mean, we get pretty caught up in everything. That's why we always say, live simply. You see that on my wall. But nothing can survive without food. I mean, you can survive for a while, I think they say you can survive like 25 days without food, depending on how big you are. I think you can survive something like 10 days without water. And the thing you can survive without the least is sleep, actually.
What?
Yeah, if a human being loses sleep for 8 days, which Sheriff Hood from Banshee doesn't really ever sleep.
Yeah.
We watched this show Banshee on Netflix. It's funny how on Prime, in the personal growth world, people always bastardize having fun and watching Netflix and chilling and stuff I ain't watching Netflix and chilling. I'm working all the time. I'll be like, well, you might need to chill a little bit. We don't watch any news, and I'll talk about that in a second, but we do watch us a little bit of Banshee every now and then. So nothing can survive without food. So we consume it, right? So we have a great excuse to eat food, right? Because we have to survive. We get a little carried away with that, though. So this is referred to as consumption of food, and a host of health problems and health challenges are associated with it. So that's where my thought, started. Is I just thought about those basic needs of nature, and I just started to kind of look at the idea of filling ourselves, right? I want to say hi to. By the way, if you want to join for the after party in the clubhouse room, It's called Mind Fuel, Rise Up with Dragon. I want to give a shout out to Clark, Kimberly, Liz, Rita, Deborah, Katya was just here. So that group will be growing. So that idea of consumption is where we get into trouble, but it's also necessary. So this is not only true for the physical body, but also for the mind. So the very word mindfulness, which is something that we're all trying to practice, the very word mindfulness implies that filling and feeding is what we're doing to the mind. So if you're being mindful, it's an interesting way of looking at it. You're filling your mind, right? Mind fill. That's like a landfill, but in the mind, mind fill. So we know that proactively, and this is something that I teach as a coach, and I also train on this, we know that proactively fueling, which is a different word, rather than filling, fueling, when you say that word fuel, your whole day changes. The whole concept of eating shifts to fueling when you use that word. So when we proactively use this concept of fueling, or we know that proactively fueling our bodies makes sense as it sets us up for great potential and stronger, less fuckwithable, excuse me for the language, but I say that every now and then, a less fuckwithable body in the face of uncontrollable, unpredictable adversities in life. So that's the idea is why would I want to fuel rather than fill and eat, right? Because of what it's projecting for me, the win. But why do I want the win? What is the goal of the win? Is to handle adversity better. One of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problems in our country, in our world, is emotional mismanagement, how we handle adversity. We can't control adversity, so that's a Stoic principle, is release from the uncontrollables, right? So proactively fueling is a good idea. So in the same light, we must become mindful of the importance that the same concept of fueling has on our mind. And that is to enhance that response system and prioritize what gets in and what doesn't. I speak a lot about this concept of being the bouncer for the nightclub. The nightclub is perhaps your mind and your life, and you're checking IDs. You get to decide what comes in, what comes out. And sometimes on that line, you've got troublemakers, right? Sometimes on that line, you have people that just don't need to be in your bar, so you don't let them in. So be the bouncer in your life. Check IDs, and if you remember, before you decide if somebody comes in or comes out, seek to understand them rather than be understood, right? Sometimes our knee-jerk reaction could be affected by our mood, right? And our disposition that day. So you can see and feel what the downstream effects are of fueling versus feeding. So feeding our bodies, or as we call eating, right, is a reactionary model that requires feelings. Interesting to think about that. If you're eating, right, and listen, Dragon doesn't pick sides. I'm just trying to help you release from your mental prison just by thinking about things. You get to decide how it makes sense to you and how it serves you. My job is just to make you think. But the idea of eating or filling is really something that's attached to feelings: happy, sad, bored, hungry, things like that. So proactively fueling, which also has the idea of putting healthy things in rather than just putting space occupying things in, that's forward moving. So I will eat because I'm happy, sad, tired, angry, depressed, anxious, hungry, or bored. All basically a lot of feelings that are associated with, the outside in effects of the world. You get caught up in the riptide, and then all of a sudden you get in that reactive model. So in this model, we often execute unconsciously, right? Think about that. We've been programmed to respond to a lot of those things unconsciously because the decisions are not ours, but triggered by outside things. It's part of our program. It's been programmed by our programmers, mother, father, teacher, preacher, and society, programming us to do those things. So that's what we call bad habits. It's interesting to look at habits like that. If we call something bad habits, we have to remember that habits, good or bad, are both hard to break. So the goal, that's really something to absorb right there. If I have a bad habit, it's hard to break because it's a habit. But the same thing holds for a good habit. If I have a good habit, it's hard to break. Like I'm in the habit right now of getting up early in the morning. If I don't, I actually get depressed about it. So that's a sign that it's a habit. I can't be without it. I'm in the habit of riding the Peloton. It's not just for physical. It's not to lose weight. It's part of my like coping mechanism in life. So habits are created by doing something with consistency for 30 days, good or bad. If you want to create a bad habit, do something bad for 30 days and then it'll become habitual. Do it for 66 and up to 90 days and it'll become unconscious. And that's when it's a habit and it'll be hard to break. So the goal is to create, if we want to move forward, that is, the goal is to create healthy habits and make them the ones that are hard to break. Wouldn't it be cool if the 95% subconscious, unconscious mind that runs the whole show, we only have a 5% window of consciousness. Maybe you're having that right now, listening to me, watching. But wouldn't it be cool if you were, like if we said, we forgive you for being healthy. You didn't know that you were doing it, right? That's not typically what happens. But so become addicted to the things that you love in life, right? But also be specific to loving and becoming addicted to things that move you forward, move the ball down the field, right? So these can be programmed. So that's the idea, is we can actually rewire and program our brain to run that autopilot in the field of things that are good for us. So I've been doing this for, and observing this for about 14 years, watching millions of people on our program, which is all about lifestyle change and habit formation, physically, mentally, and financially. But I've been watching millions of people reclaim their health and modify their unconscious habits, which starts with identifying them, and behaviors, to that of proactive, supportive, healthy habits, which starts with saying, what do I want? What's a touchdown? And then we start identifying how we move the ball down the field. So this, in effect, has a great impact on the mind. As we know, it's only the healthy body that a healthy mind sits on, right? So a lot of people out there in personal growth world, me included for many, many years, are working on the mind, but not taking care of the body. It's hard to have the body follow the mind. It's interesting. You could try it, and if it works for you, be a guest on my show, and I'll get your autograph. But when the body gets in order, the healthy mind tends to sit on it. It's like when you take yourself seriously and you get your temple in order, everything follows suit. But what are you fueling your mind with? That's the conscious thought I want you to look at today. You can see that the world, the word fueling comes close to that of filling as well as feeling. Are you mind filling, or mind fulling, or mind feeling, or are you ready to become mind fuel? Right? Think about that. So if I'm mindful, that means that my mind's full of something. That doesn't necessarily mean that what I'm filling my mind with is good. But if I twist that word, and it's just a conscious twist, right? If I'm mind fueling, then what I'm doing, just like when I'm looking at food and identifying nutrition in it, if I'm looking at things and happenings and things that I'm allowing in my mind that serve me and move the ball down the field, I'm mind fueling. I thought that was cute. So it's a cute twist of the word mindful, but it possesses a great power to consider what you're fueling your mind with, as it's supporting and modifying your Intel processor, right? And your program. So all of a sudden now we say, whatever it is that I'm fueling my mind with is basically creating the perceptions and, analytics of our mind, our Intel processor. We're actually capable of fueling our mind. So a lot of people understand that reading very often is good, but what are you reading, right? I like to watch YouTube videos about things that fuel my mind, but I know that if I were to turn the news on, and we'll get into that, is that mind filling or mind fueling? So I like to look at what I'm consuming with my mind as either a virus or an upgrade. So whenever I look and I analyze and I say, is this something I want in my mind? I ask myself, is it a virus or an upgrade? So perhaps even consider things like detoxifications and cleanses and their benefits of removing toxins from the body. I think everybody knows what those are. And consider, them in the same light, right? So let's have a quiz here for a second to see if you guys are making sense of this and see if you can respond to this quiz mindfully. And if you put it in the chat there, you'll be acknowledged. And I'll say great job for putting that in the chat. If you're in Clubhouse, we'll talk about it in just a second, almost there. So here's the quiz. If you're passionate about a lot of these like traumatic and tragic world events that are going on, because I know a lot of people are excited about it. It's on the news for a reason. People are into it. So if you're really passionate about that stuff and the political unrest and stuff like that, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but what I'm asking you is, if you look at your goal in life, are you mind filling or mind fueling? Just curious, right? Because I mean, if you're a newscaster and you have to project this news to the masses, maybe it is mind fueling because it's part of your mission and your goal. But if you're just an observer in life, catch yourself. Are you taking a lot of time and putting a lot of passion into something that doesn't necessarily move your ball down the field? Just a thought. So tough one for some people, as their program has the ability to override threatening ideas or pending behavior modifications, right? We can actually say, yeah, but, right? A lot of people approach us because we don't watch the news and they say we should, and they have a reason, It's always, that's what I always find fascinating is if I'm totally against something, I can find somebody that's totally for it. So just like it's hard to start waking up early, just for me, or quitting smoking, habits are hard to break. So if you're in the habit of consuming news, for instance, and social media, or waking up in the morning and consuming social media before you even start your day, that's not how I do it, or even negative conversations that you're having and conflict in your community, the idea of changing is met first with adversity, right? If you're in the habit of doing something and you start to ponder this, it's going to be met with adversity first. This is why when, if you go up to somebody that smokes, if you ask them, hey, is it good for you to smoke? Is smoking good for you? They'll say, no, it isn't, but, right? Because they're in the habit of it. It's interesting how we could consciously know that we're doing something that doesn't fuel our body or our mind and protect it, now's not a good time. Now's not a good time to quit or get off my back. I'm going to quit next week or something like that. I've been there. I was a 3-degree black belt in that. So no, but, right? So I was watching the news. This is something I hear. I was watching the news about crime and scandal and war. Is that good for you? No, but, right, I need to be in touch with things and stuff. So we have a tendency of defending and protecting our situation. But I want to stay in touch with world events, and you should too. So I admit that at times I knew myself that I was just justifying my position. We have a tendency, and I do too, to justify my position. So what I try to do on the Rise Up show is not protect and justify my position. I like to be open to anything, because one of the things, it's a great breakthrough in life when you realize that you actually don't know what the hell you're talking about, or you might not know what you're talking about. That's why I always choose to be kind versus right. If somebody comes at me with something that I kind of like know is not right, I don't tell them that I know that. I first say, and I seek to understand. And even if it's ludicrous, I'll say, tell me more, right? Tell me more. Because that's just my way of saying, I'm not going to take a position that I'm right about something right now. I might leave this conversation thinking that I'm still going to go with what I think, but I try not to do that immediately. So I'll usually say, drives chicken crazy. When chicken will promote a chicken fact to me that I'm thinking like, she doesn't know what she's talking about there. But before I say it, I go, and it drives her crazy because she goes, don't me. I'm like, this is right. And I'm like, oh, right? Because that's me recognizing that she wants to be right. But we always work that out. So I admit that I've done this at times, even when I knew that, the things that I was thinking or protecting were against my forward movement, like I used to be 80 pounds overweight, so I used to protect that as well. So I had a tendency also, do you ever do this? I had a tendency of telling, friends that were in life, sometimes I would notice that friends were growing beyond me. We started off in the same position, and I would notice that they were happier and healthier and wealthier and just in acceleration, that I would have a tendency back then in my unconscious days to say that they were kidding themselves, right? And they were destined to fail and should just come back to reality. That's what your smoker posse or your alcohol posse or your drugs posse or your negative conversations. We were in the park, and we saw this whole group of people that were anti-mask people, right? So you got your mask people and your anti-mask people. And I just love to observe that, because you just have two separate people that are claiming to be right, but I don't know which one's right, and I'm not going to try to. And that's a better response system. Say, okay. If they come up and say, you don't need to wear a mask, rather than saying, yes, I do, or no, I don't, I would just say, tell me more, right? And what I find is if you let people talk, they kind of walk away knowing that some of the things that they said made no sense at all. But when you conflict with them, you actually give them the ability to feel that they're right, because they're right in the stance that they want to take, right? So amazing. So anyway, to everybody that I used to put down that was rising up in life, I apologize for all those years, and I congratulate you for your happy days. So we don't watch the news here in our house, and this drives people crazy. And I see this as a similar scenario as smoking. In fact, I contend that you'd actually, if you were to choose, and this is debatable. This is just a pondering thought, but I would think that you might live longer if you smoked but didn't watch the news than smoked and watched the news. I'm just saying it might even be healthier to smoke than to watch the news nowadays. I don't have any research to prove that, and I'm not going to back it up. If somebody has something else to say about that, I'll just say, tell me more. So, but looking at that with no pressure and simple logic, you can delineate the things in life that fuel your mind and fuel your fire and move the ball down the field. So it's just a matter of looking at things with logic. So the purpose of this Rise Up today was simply to identify the potential glitch in your matrix. Just like I said, when we were in the restaurant, there was like this game going on, and everybody else but the simulation that I created, this relationship that I have with my chicken, everything else is just a game, just a matrix. But every now and then we'll notice a glitch in our matrix, and that glitch might be that we're doing things and thinking things and letting things in our body and in our mind that actually have nothing to do with moving our ball down the field. So we're going to insert instead of full, just for fun. If you want to have some fun, if you're into fun, I like to party, I like to have fun. But we're going to insert that word fuel instead of full, into our simulation. We're going to insert it into our game. So it's an extra level of thought where we can challenge whether or not we're consuming mind-feely or mind-fuely. And then the last thing I'll say, you'll see in my outro how to get in touch with me. That on Instagram, I've actually upped my game on Instagram just to keep people in touch. And guide people to a place where they're unlocking and things like that. So that's actually at Rise Up with Dragon. I changed the name to be more appropriate. Clubhouse, you can find me at Makes Sense. We have an amazing Clubhouse room on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, where I've just got a stacked group of just massively successful, physically, mentally, and financially people that are going to share their secrets. So if you follow me on on Clubhouse, you'll find that. But one last thing I've been doing is when I wake up, and I'm going to challenge you guys to do this. Those moments where you wake up in the morning and you've had a dream, as wacky or crazy or scary or happy as it was, dream or nightmare. I just challenge you in the morning to write about it. I did that the other day, and I'm creating this new segment, and I'm going to write a book about it called Only in My Dreams. And if you write your dream and it's like just totally shareable and it's crazy, send it to me at my email, jc@drdornick.com, and I'm going to put some other people's dreams into that book. So love and appreciate you. Great morning, world, and have a wonderful day. We're going to move into the Clubhouse room and interact with some folks that feel like interacting, and I love you. Appreciate you.